Yo, what's up, everybody? Today we're going to take a look at Gorgon's gaze and ask the question: do you think you need it now?
I don't need it. I don't need. I definitely don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. I need it!
All right, so now that that's over, we're going to take a look at Gorgon's gaze a little bit more in depth, and I guess you kind of gets my sentiments. I was a holdout on the card for a bit, and why do I want to use it now? So, first, we're going to take a look at some of his complicated history. Now, going into early playtesting, this card was a rules nightmare. Absolutely just chaos on a card. It still is probably the most complicated rules card in the game right now because of how much it can do and kind of the game states that it causes and forces. So the big holdup in the past was that it didn't negate anything. It just removed the abilities from cards, which caused cards entering play or abilities being activated to kind of be in this weird limbo state of, well, is the effect still tied to an Elestral when it's activated already, or is it now on a chain and it's a separate entity? Does removing an ability negate the ability? And that really caused a lot of confusion. We had almost a 2 hour long call on Discord discussing what should happen if I normal cast a Sluggle and in response to it entering play, my opponent Gorgon's gazed it. Would I still recover 3 water spirits? And it was a very long conversation where I thought it would still trigger because it's a trigger on the normal cast, so it would enter the chain in a separate time than it entered play. And the other two people in the call were trying to say, well, no, because it no longer has an ability, so it wouldn't have the ability to activate. But in my head, the ability's separately chaining, and it caused a lot of headache. So we had a very, very long call. At the end of it, Dan got back to us and determined that the way that Gorgons should have worked in that situation was that I would cover the water spirits because the ability is already activated on the resolution of the cast as opposed to activating before that the Gorgon's gaze could be triggered to target it. It was a whole confusing mess. So the card was confusing. So I didn't really want to play it because A, it caused a lot of really confusing board states. I even had a whole like 15 or 20 minute long video on just Gorgon's Gaze and the weird rules and design of it at the time, how you could at the time use it to basically cause a bunch of rewinds with if your opponent was casting a Sonicore at the time, then you could chain it to the thing it was trying to ascend to, causing a rewind, and it made no sense. Like, it was just so frustrating. So, moving on. Complicated card, partially why I didn't run it. The rates for some of its like abilities aren't the best. So if you're playing 2 to stop an attack, that's a pretty bad rate because right now you can either use Tsunami or Altar for 1 to stop attacks. You could use Shield for 2, 3-ish, sometimes 4 to stop an attack and send the card to your opponent's hand. So it's even better than just stopping the attack. You could stop a Nexus. So if you're stopping a Kinleo from Nexusing, you can stop it from destroying something, and then if it opens your board as a Kinleo, it can attack you for 3 directly. So stopping Nexus sometimes is viable, but if it's stopping like an Equal Link Nexus, well, if the Equal Link Nexus and just targets Gorgon's Gaze, what's that going to do? It's you're spending now for your card to still be destroyed, and you just stopped a Nexus for a turn. Not always the best rate, depending on the situation. You can stop your opponent from re-enchanting something, which is very rare. The only things that we see people constantly re-enchanting are like Astrabits or Panda Sins or, stuff that wants to receive elements. Usually the most common re-enchantments, not really worth it. And you can stop abilities, which I think is where this card is really kind of sitting and why I'm playing it now, is using it to stop abilities. Now, it's a toolbox card. It does whatever you need it to in the moment. Not always at the best rates, but stopping an ability for 2 is honestly pretty strong, especially right now in our meta with like Voltempest being there. You stop your opponent on a Griffuse, they're stuck. On a Griffuse, their Griffuse is going to get destroyed. It's a 5-2 or 5-3, and you're getting rid of a ton of resources. That's pretty good. Stopping a Tectorus, or not Tectorus, sorry, Viserys in the Earthbeaters deck to slow their tempo at the early game is honestly very good because the best way to deal with the Earthbeater deck is to stop it early. So because our meta is kind of currently, there's a lot of combo driven stuff, like super fast tempo, Voltempest combo stuff, like driving the early kind of meta game. Gorgon's Gaze is a really good option, even as a main deck card. I always thought it would be relegated to a sideboard stuff because, again, if there's matchups where you're just trying to stop attacks or something, it's not going to do much. But now that we have a lot more kind of combo-y control stuff, or not in combo control stuff, but a lot more strong abilities floating around that people are trying to use, it's gotten a lot better. So I've been holding out on the card for a while. I'm going to start using it a bit more now. Do I think it's a 3 of in every deck? Not at all. Like, if you're playing Earth Beaters, I don't think it does a ton to help your tempo when you're trying to get all your pieces into play with Earth Beaters. You could probably use it in Voltempest just to get some extra protection for your early stuff to go into Voltempest. But it's definitely a slower card. So if you're playing an aggressive deck, it might not be worth it. But it is a great card to have in a sideboard when your opponent has combos that you need to stop. And it's a little bit more utility than, say, Pandora's Box, which is great at stopping Voltempest as well. It's great at stopping Centaur. It's great at stopping a lot of searching. It's a good card, Pandora's Box, but it's very specific and niche. Gorgon's Gaze, its best use is stopping abilities, in my opinion. But also it does everything else you might need for a moment. So that's kind of worth the premium 2 cost, where although it does feel bad to stop an attack for 2 when you could shield something, having the ability to also stop an ability if you need to, stop a Nexus if you need to, is pretty good. So I give it a pass now. That's my thoughts. If you have any other opinions on Gorgon's Gaze, let me know. And honestly, check out my previous video. I think it's FAQ 2 on my channel, Gorgon's Gaze. And I go through like 15 minutes of what the card used to do and what chaos it caused. It's a really interesting kind of concept. Other than that, hope you guys appreciate this one. This one's a little bit shorter. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace. You have a great one. Like, subscribe. I appreciate your guys' support. Peace.